fucking diesel all over the bloody road. Right boys, hello. How we doing? You find me wearing a big fucking Johnny, with a big rain waterproof Johnny suit thing. We're actually on our way down to Chester KTM because this bike has been a bit of annoying. Well, there's a few more issues wrong with the bike, should I say. Nothing too drastic. So yeah, basically where on the front forks there are little red little protectors or little cover things, like dust cover, and essentially they're fucked, and they keep sliding down. And it sounds like a little thing, but whilst it's under warranty I'm going to get it checked out. I also noticed a bit of an issue with what looked to be little drips coming from the radiator hose, and the reserve tank for the overflow seems to be very empty, so I need to mention that whilst I'm there. But as usual, this time of year in this country is absolutely pissing it down, which is standard. But also, whilst I was talking to Chester about getting, you know, these bits looked at, so they turned around and they said, by the way, your bike has a recall on it for its wiring harness, which I didn't know about, obviously. I don't know why this wasn't done before it got sent out to me, but yeah, it's needing its wiring harness to be done. So whilst I'm out, I thought I'd give you a little motor vlog of the journey, talk about some stuff along the way, and yeah, so stay tuned. I'll see you in a minute. So I'm still rocking the baffle out. I love it. I don't think it's too loud either. Even started it up before to get the bike out. After the initial bang of it starting up, once it sort of warms up, it's actually not as bad as you think. And this pipe is road legal, so hopefully, you know, that won't get me in trouble or anything. There are a few of the bits and bobs that I'm wanting to do to the bike at some point, namely little things. Like I said, I'm struggling with money at the minute, so there's not much I can do with the bike, so they'll be coming in drips and drabs across the channel. Again, a bit of a channel update. We're just past 800 subscribers, thank you so much. We're on the way to 1,000. There will be a 1,000 subscriber giveaway. I think I'll be doing like a sports bike shop voucher or something like that, like 50 quid voucher or something, as a little thank you to everybody for keeping with me and sticking past the speed triple issues and stuff like that. We're going into the rain, I'm afraid, whereas the nice clear weather is behind us, so we're going to get wet. Taking it easy today. I'm not doing anything fancy. One of the things I wanted to talk about on this journey, at least, after, you know, next to the wiring harness, is I wanted to talk about this bike a little bit more. I was actually scared of this bike before I ever stepped foot on it or anything like that, you know. I remember this time last year in December-ish, I went and test rode the 890R, the Duke. Didn't know anything much about the KTM range at the time. The place where I went to is now gone. Apparently it's disappeared. But basically, yeah, I got off the 890 and thought to myself, Jesus Christ, because that engine on the 890 is really, really punchy. And I was riding it around in winter on Michelin Power Cup 2s, which are essentially road slicks, and I'll say it wasn't a great experience. Go and watch the video. I really loved that bike. It was a very nice bike. I was owning the Street Triple at the time, so it was comparable. But the torque on that thing down low was so punchy, and I remember saying, like, it was not a beginner's bike, because if you were ham-fisted with that thing, you'd be goners in the winter, you know, if you weren't careful with it. And then that made me fear this bike. It really did. It made me worried about trying this bike out, and so I never actually ended up test riding it. Long story short, I then went and got the Speed Triple 1200. God, these fucking bumps in the road every fucking time. Oh, my back. But yeah, I went and got the Speed Triple 1200 and had a load of problems with that, which was very annoying. That ended up going back, and whilst I had the Speed Triple, I had to go with Moggy, my mate of mine. I had to go with his SDR, and his was fully kitted out. You know, it's a beautiful bike, and he's done a bit more to it since now, full titanium acra and all that, and it's a gorgeous bike. I think he's selling that on actually, to get a new one. But I had to go on that thing, and the bug bit me. But before I went on it, and I remember looking, whilst I was, you know, looking about for different bikes at the time from the Street Triple, I remember looking at it and just seeing how big and chunky it was, and I'm not going to lie, it really did. The thought of it frightened me because of everything everyone was saying about them, and and all the, you know, the torque and all that, and I thought it would be unrideable. And I was actually, yeah, I was fearful of getting on one of them. But long story short, again, I had to go on I had to go on one of them. I had to go on a 2020 or 2021, I can't remember now. And I absolutely loved it, but I was also ridiculously surprised because it was no way near as intimidating as I thought. I remember I pulled the throttle back. Again, go and look at that video on my channel if you want. I pulled the throttle back and I was surprised at how timid it was. I was confused. Because, you know, everyone had been telling me that these things, you know, rip your fucking head off and all sorts of shit, and I just did not experience that at all from when I got on it. I was very shocked. So yeah, like, surprisingly enough, the 890 surprised me more than the 1290, just because of the road manners of that 890 were a little bit sort of intimidating down low for somebody that hadn't ridden a twin in a while. Ooh, something just skipped out then when I went up here. The 890 was actually more intimidating to me than getting on a 1290. The 1290 to me, it's a bigger bike. It suits me better being a bigger guy. The 890 was a little bit small. I kind of like the street triple. Getting on this thing, I was shitting myself, I'm not going to lie. But even just this kind of stuff, you know, just pottering around and doing this, it is so well behaved, it's unbelievable. Like, you wouldn't think with a big 1.3 litre V-twin that it could behave so well, you know. And I'm here thinking, oh fuck it, I'm going to get on one of these things and oh shit, you know. Yeah, really apprehensive about this bike I was when I got on it. Ow, fucking ice. We're out of the rain for 10 seconds, I'll take it. And the thing is about the 890 is that it felt very clunky. It was almost like the street triple was to the speed. It was just really clunky feeling and very agricultural, whereas this feels a hell of a lot more, I don't like to say it, but refined. And just doing slow speed stuff, you wouldn't believe the manners that this thing has, but you want to open it up, you know, you want to open it up and it's got so much there, but it's not scary. Like, it doesn't freak you out if you pull the throttle back like I would have expected this thing to do. It's very composed, it's really easy to ride, the throttle responses and stuff, even in track mode and stuff like that and sport mode, you know, they're sharp but they're not unmanageable. And the fueling down low is something that really got me. I was very surprised. It could do with a little bit of work, like I said in the past. I don't know if you've seen any of the other videos, but it could do with a little bit of work. But having said that, as it is out of the factory with Euro emissions and, you know, lots of emissions kit on here to make it lean, essentially, to get it through emissions, the 5,000 RPM sort of area, like, even with all that, it's very surprising. I'm actually wearing my heated gloves today because my other gloves have ripped, so I'm having to start wearing these again now, and I really hate the feel of big thick gloves. Sounds so good. But you know, even in like the rain now, you know, giving it, you know, all the throttle. I mean, yeah, I'm in 4th gear, but you know, it's like if I was in 2nd gear or something, I'd still, yeah, I'd be a bit more careful. But I mean, to be honest, on this bike, the 1st and 2nd gears, they're the ones you got to watch out for. But 3rd, 4th, you know, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, they're not scary at all. Like, I don't know what it is, but 2nd gear, obviously 1st gear, that thing is just brutal, but it's quite short, so it gets you through to 2nd quite easily. 2nd gear is the wheelie gear. Like, that is the gear that if you want to just crack the throttle open, it'll come up. 3rd gear, 30 mile an hour, you know, something like that, you're not going to get the same amount of punch. For example, 3rd gear, 40 mile an hour, like, it's very quick, don't get me wrong, there is a lot there. Oh, it's a 30 limit down here, fuck, oops, I thought it was 60. This bike's really intimidating when you first look at it, or you first, you know, think about getting to know it or something like that, you know. And the more you ride it, well, the first time you get on the bloody thing, it's so surprising. It really is surprising how much of a little baby this thing can be, and it's so rideable to the point where, you know, an intermediate rider wouldn't have much problem getting along with it. You've just got to be careful in some areas where it will rip your face off sometimes, certain gears and certain scenarios and stuff. However, they're kind of few and far between if you know what you're doing and you're sensible. Like with any bike, it only goes as fast as you pull the throttle back. And the other thing with this is that, say if you're in 1st or 2nd gear and you kind of twitch the throttle back or pull it back a little bit too quickly, you know, it can probably frighten someone that's never experienced a wheelie before or something, I don't know. But just as is, like, it's a really forgiving, the electronics are really good, probably the best that I've actually tried, and the speed triples were pretty damn good as well. And the fact that you've got anti-wheelie, you know, as well as traction and MTC, and then you've got the slip adjustment for downshifting and stuff like that, you know, how much the rear wheel can kind of move in a way when you downshift the gear, and you know, you can turn the anti-wheelie off. With the traction control, it does intrude, especially when you're trying to do wheelies with anti-wheelie mode on. That's what anti-wheelie mode does, is it stops it from coming up. And you know, you can notice traction kick in, but it's not in a way that's jarring like a lot of other bikes where you can feel. And I've had it before where the traction control upsets the feel, especially if you're in a corner and you say, if you're coming out of a corner and you give it throttle, the traction control can sometimes kick in, and it can almost, like, you know, shit you up to the point where you feel like you're going to come off, or the bike just destabilizes in a certain way. And this doesn't really have that at all. Like, you can feel it kicking in, but it isn't too, I don't want to say intrusive, but I don't want to say it's just not, doesn't have that much of an effect on your handling, geometry and engine. Because obviously if you cut the power to the engine, you start the process of engine braking. And if you're asking the engine to do more than it can, and the rear wheel's slipping and the traction's kicking in, a lot of systems can do that. It can be very difficult to control. But the IMU in this is really, really nice. It's got the Bosch 6-axis IMU, I believe. It's got the cornering ABS, it's got cornering traction control, the traction control to turn it on and off, all that kind of stuff. But after a while on this bike, it just makes you realise, and it sounds a bit silly, but I actually want more. You know, this bike was sold to me as like, this is the most intense experience, you know, it's the most brutal thing you've ever fucking been on. And it's actually quite timid. And so I've been on a bit of a quest to try and get power out of it without spending so much money. So I've gone with the Pipeworks exhaust, the slip-on. I've taken the servo motor off and put the servo eliminator in there. And I've taken the baffle out, which, you know, it can, I don't want to say it messes up the fueling, because it doesn't, but at the same time the fueling is different and it needs a map. I'm not going to lie, it does need a map, but I can't afford a map. And you know, even now, just an ECU flash that used to be £180 is now £300 odd. It's very expensive. But third gear picking up, second, you know, there is a lot there. I'm not sure if it is the fact that you get used to the power, because I've not been on another bike since owning this. It would be interesting to see maybe going back to a street triple or something, as to how much that can affect your perception. Because, you know, you get used to things, you want more. It's like with money, you know, say if you have all the money in the world, people still want more of it. So I don't know if it's one of those where it's just skewed my vision a little bit, or my perception as to what a powerful bike is. But I feel like I want more out of it at this point. Which is why I'm saying I used to be scared of this thing. Looking at them, I was like, no, I cannot ride that. I remember looking back in the day when I was looking at them, I was like, I can't ride that thing. I'd fucking kill myself. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is a quick bike. You know, any bike has the potential to kill you if you're stupid with it. Even a 125, I know enough. I've had so many accidents that I know that all too well. But at the same time, now that I've ridden this for a substantial amount of time, I can say with some certainty that this it's nowhere near as scary as you might think it might be. I hope it isn't 20 past 11, because I'm meant to be there at 11. If you ever find yourself wanting to try a SuperDuke but being a bit too intimidated or scared, just try it out. It's only a bike, it'll only go as fast as you pull the throttle back, and you'll probably find you actually really, really, really bloody like it, and then end up fucking buying one. And that is the type of power that you're getting. I think one of the problems with the bike is that in terms of its quickness, you know, in terms of how punchy it is, and in terms of like the torque and all that kind of stuff, I have a feeling that because the twin is quite lumpy, so say if I'm at 5th gear now at 45 mile an hour, if I pull it back, you know, if I pull back the throttle, it doesn't feel like it's doing anything, because the twin is so, like, you can feel the pistons really having to work, which is why twins never really work well at low RPMs at high gears, which is why I'm so surprised I'm getting such a good mileage out of it, to be honest. But what you find is like that instant kind of build up that you get from a triple or a 4-cylinder, you know, because obviously the pistons are smaller, they can do more work and they're going quicker. It feels like it's not going as fast as it is in a way. So if I pull back the throttle, you know, it doesn't feel great, whereas if I'm in 4th gear, again, it doesn't feel that great. It feels very lumpy. In 3rd gear, it wants to go now. So it's almost like above 4,000 RPM is where the engine likes to be in order to make some power. If you want to be efficient with it, and you know, you want to do 5th gear and 40 mile an hour kind of thing, there's nothing there in order for it to the momentum is kind of gone, it feels like, and it feels like the engines are really having to work to pick up. However, the increase in speed and the torque that it's generating in order to do that is substantial. Otherwise, it wouldn't get to do that in the first place. That's why the twins are so synonymous with torque, I think. And it's almost like it feels like it's lagging to pick itself up, and it's very difficult to put that feeling of really low, sluggy, chuggy kind of V-twin with the speed that you're actually going, because you're actually going a lot faster than you think you are, and you're picking up speed a lot faster than you think you are. You know, for example, if I'm in 5th gear at 40 mile an hour, I'm expecting this to be horrible, but if I just pull the throttle back, I'm already at 50. You know, but the feeling of the bike, because it's not like an inline 4 or anything like that, it feels like it's really having to work, which it is technically, you know. So we're nearly here now, boys. This is going to be me. Been a nice enough ride. Hopefully it isn't 25 past 11. Oh, it sounds so good. I'm getting more backfire with the baffle out as well, which is like, yes. Thank you. These bikes in general, once you take the exhaust off them, they sound bloody good. Oh no, it's the wrong lane. Whoops. I'll tell you what as well, as I'm absolutely sick of having to wash this fucking thing. Every time I go out, I'm having to bloody wash it. Anyway, here we are, boys. There we are. I bought a Harley from here once. Biggest regret I've ever done. Right, let's go. I'll see you very, very soon, I'm sure. And until the next time, boys and girls, sort them out. See you soon. I'll do here, mate. I'll do. You alright, mate? I've got my bike in at 11. I don't know what time it is. Oh, thank fuck. My bike was telling me it's 11:30. I swear that's not bloody right. Yeah, it's in for some warranty work.